Good morning, everyone. It's 5 AM. My favourite time in the morning. You know those weirdos that get up at 4 o'clock in the morning? That's me. I'm actually going to work. Drive, so they still stop me talking shite for half an hour. I've got my wee light on here so you can see me. It's dark. Yeah. So if there's anyone else about, they'll just see my giant illuminated face glowing inside the car. Okay, so yeah, the more I talk about this stuff, the less it seems to matter, and the less I can be bothered talking about it. I'm starting to see little bits of ego appearing, being observed, as in, it's almost as though this practice in a way gives the ego some sort of superpower of invisibility that kind of almost makes it more difficult to spot, as in the subtler layers of it are very difficult to spot, but they're definitely there, which is good. So in kind of becoming aware of them, then again you dissolve them more. And it's not so much in the mind activity. It's operating at a different level. I suppose it still is, but the easy part is seeing through the ghost of the mind, so like the mental narrative and the ego of the mind, this invisible entity that you carry around with you, dialogue in the head. That's the easy part. That's easy. Like as in you can easily spot that. Hang on, there we go. You can easily spot that. The trickier part comes when you start to question physical reality, your physical body, the stuff that's seemingly more solid, the stuff that's not easy to see is just a ghost-like entity, non-physical entity that you carry around with you. That's when it starts to become more difficult, but that's when it starts to become more scary at the same time. I find that a lot of the teachings that I have seen or read about and so on. And the stages and the way it's explained, I found a lot of that to be counterproductive for me, because in a way it kind of scrambles my mind. And in a way it's fuel for the ego, and it's very confusing to try and understand with the mind and then carry that understanding into your practice. For me, what would be more useful for me is comparing the state, say the state of non-duality, or the state of no-self, to similar altered states of consciousness that have been experienced at different points in life, because there are a lot of similarities there. Like, say for example, what I mentioned about the pain disassociation that happens when physical pain becomes to such a level. There's a transcendence of the self. Also, say, I'm not sure how many people have experienced this, probably most people, when you get an adrenaline rush, when your life's in danger. Again, there's a altered state of consciousness there that's driven by the primal instinct to preserve the physical body. But again, paradoxically, in that state, you transcend the ego completely, and the world of form seems to operate itself. Just a couple examples. These are comparable to the state that you move into when you start to deconstruct the physical reality. If you've ever been knocked out and or you bumped your head, and then that period where you come back around, and then your brain has to kind of reconstruct reality, and there's like a little bit of a process there, very similar. So those kind of reference points in memory, I guess, would be quite useful. Explaining something that you have no reference point on is, and trying to go off that, is complicated things for me. I expected the latter stages of realization to happen in a similar way to the initial realization, which was a drastic shift that seemed to happen quite quickly. It seems to not be happening like that. It seems the latter stages of realization seem to be quite a gradual thing for me. I think rather than a profound sudden shift, and it seems to be almost happening itself. So, if that makes sense. And yeah, I was wrong before when I said that all it takes is just to be present and be open, and you're almost kind of, the intelligence that's there, that's not the intelligence of the intellect or the person or the ego, is in the universal intelligence, put it that way. You're using that to look. You're looking from there, and when you look from there for long enough, the form that's accumulated, the perspective there starts to shift, and reality breaks down. So you're from that position of intelligence. You're just looking with that, and that kind of does the work in a sense. But it needs to be, again, it's a paradox. You're relaxing into that, but again, you're still doing something. But I was kind of kidding myself on a bit. Again, that's what I mean about the ego. I can see how people would develop a spiritual ego. The ego sneakily tries to protect itself by convincing you on some level that you're not fully aware of, that you have that you have deconstructed yourself more than you actually have, if that makes sense. It's very sneaky. So in a way, I was kind of kidding myself on, because like I said, that the mind self is the easy part, the mental narrative. When you finally see through that, and then the hard work kind of begins, because turning the deconstructing intelligence onto the physical reality, the stuff that is seemingly more solid, seemingly more permanent. Obviously it's not permanent. It's like this. That becomes terrifying, because and I'm moving to, like, in states of deep meditation, I've experienced this, but it's not. I think it's gradually. It's happening gradually, because if it was to happen too quickly, I don't think I'd be able to handle it. But you see that this form is temporary. This form is really just a thought. This form is temporary, but it's also infinite. An infinite changing movement. Ever changing, but these forms are impermanent. But what is behind that, or not behind that, but what is in that, is infinite. And in order for that to be infinite, it would have to be nothing. Something that transcends form, in form, is form. Something that transcends time and space altogether. Again, another paradox, is form. And also, the meaning that we search for is this, because this is the world of the person that creates that meaning. I don't know if any of that makes sense. you start to see the obvious glitches in the mind with the ego and the thought processes. The glitches become overbearing, and then the mind, the ego mind, it just has to go. It doesn't go, but it stops becoming serious. It's seen through, it becomes transparent. And then you start to get glitches in this physical reality. And then the glitches accumulate in the similar way that with the ego mind it became as one big fucking glitch. And then you can't take it seriously anymore. If you know what I mean by that. It's not like you can't take it seriously, it's just seen through. I'm beginning to get the glitches with the physical reality. And it's becoming more obvious that it really is just a temporary movement of form, just another thought, in a sense. And it's the observation of the senses that are initially allowing me these insights. Like, for example, the sight, like I talked about in that kind of guided meditation last time. And you at times can clearly see that there's no person, there's no self. I'm just going slowly with this. Again, because we're talking about your boundaries and your limit, your sense of physicality in this space. It can become very disorientating, if that's a word. I think if you go too quickly. Like the kind of very similar kind of panic reaction or strange reaction that happens. That I explained before when dissolving the ego mind. But this time it's not so much based in thought immediately. It's based in your perception of physical space you take up in this this time-space reality, and the snapping back to that gives you a kind of jarring effect that can be very overwhelming. So yeah, different bits of progress. Happening at the pace that they need to happen at. all it takes is the looking long enough, the looking from that perspective of intelligence and openness and curiosity. And like I said, something's doing the work. It's not the person deconstructing itself, it's something else deconstructing the person. And I know that the one intelligence reality felt from the perspective of the one universal intelligence. I know that that's another self. It's another level of self. I know that intellectually, but I don't quite experience that yet. As permanent, irreversible insight. But like I said, you go at the pace that you're supposed to go at. And I think it can be pushed too quickly at times. It's possible to push it too quickly at times. It's kind of like the resistance of the person is needed to balance out the process. Anyway, that is 20 minutes plus. I'll leave it there.